I don't know what the issue is with having difficulty understanding, first and foremost, what is there no doubt about? There is absolutely no doubt that there is a war between the divine, in a sense, and Satan. It's Satan versus humanity. It's good versus evil. It's haqq versus batil. Shaitan took a promise upon himself that he is going to misguide the people. And ultimately, if you're a believer that everything, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the creator of everything, you can't exclude AI. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He decreed it. He wants AI to be. He wants artificial intelligence to be. Why? Is it a coincidence that Dajjal is all about deception? I mean, what is it that in the authentic narration where Dajjal is walking, and the Prophet ﷺ, he says he has paradise on one side and Jahannam, the view of, on another side. And his paradise is hell and his hell is paradise. So you're at a point where you can't trust your perception. You can't trust what you see. Already we're in a divine matrix where we're talking about having the nur of the divine to be able to penetrate so the world becomes transparent and you're able to see. It's not that the illusion of the world disappears, it's that the ignorance, the jahiliyyah disappears. Ignorance means ignoring the one truth. So when the nur of Tawheed enters into the heart, you're able to pierce through the veils of multiplicity, the asbab, the world of form, and get to the one behind the many. This is the type of nur. And Rasulullah ﷺ is telling us that those with that type of light will be able to see through Dajjal and the deception of Dajjal because they'll be able to see the 666, the Kafara, the symbol of the beast will be shown only to the believers, not to everybody. It's not to everybody. And then the idea of the one bad eye of Dajjal could be metaphorical or it could be actually physical. And Sulaiman alayhi salam seeing the jasad on his throne, the Arabic language for jasad, listen carefully, the Arabic language, the Arabic word for jasad means body with no soul. So why is it far-fetched then that we're not saying Dajjal could be, yes, a human being with powers given to him by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He could be from, maybe Iblis at that point is given permission to transform. In some of the, the scholars talk of the possibility of it being Iblis. The more authentic narration that, yeah, it's but we don't know. Why not be a type of, or at least utilize the aid of artificial intelligence for his tools? And there's many things we can talk about the show. First, we have to start with jinn. Jinn and electric currents. Jinn are created from a smokeless fire. And that could represent pure energy or a type of electrical charge. So just like the jinn they're invisible, yet they're very, they have certain powers, certain things that يُقَالَ عِفْرِيتٌ مِّنَ الْجِنِّ أَنَا آتِيكَ بِهِ. He says, I will come to you, telling Sulaiman alayhi salam, with the throne of Balqis, which is a symbol of power, before you get up from your place. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not want us to rely on that type of power. So his wazir, Sulaiman, in one of the tafsirs, his wazir says, أَنَا آتِيكَ قَالَ الَّذِي عِنْدَهُ عِلْمُ الْكِتَابِ. The one that had the knowledge of the book. He says, أَنَا آتِيكَ مِنْ قَبْلَ أَنْ يَرْتَدَّ إِلَيْكَ طَرْفُكَ. Before the blink of an eye. And the blink of an eye is the distance, basically, it's basically at a point where it's like light speed or faster. Because the retina, before blinking of the eye, as far as you can see, and the retina is used or vision is used because of the bouncing of light off of form. So meaning a reference to the speed of light. So, but electric currents are also, they're what? They're what's going to drive artificial intelligence and modern technology. And they're not visible to the eye, yet they're operating. And Satan's whisperings could be AI algorithms. Because Satan's whispers in the hearts could be also, we're not saying that he's not whispering in reality. You're hearing thoughts that are from shaitan, but the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, yajri min ibn Adam majra dam. That just like the current, just like blood carries, because of heparin, I believe it is a negative charge. And it's negative for sure. It's not like a very positive one, at least for the evil jinn. And that they can be likened, those waswas, to a type of AI algorithm, because AI algorithms, they subtly shape the human thoughts and behaviors without us realizing it. That's what they do. Just like shaitan is like, without us realizing, you say, why did I do that? You're thinking it's your own thought, and it's a thought from shaitan. So that's subtly human, that just like AI algorithms subtly sort of influence us. There's a link. Now, there could be an understanding that it is this and that as well, but why isn't it? Why don't talk about this? You're cuckoo. You're this. Why not discuss these things? They're interesting. You know what? Don't believe them. Have some fun. Everything doesn't have to. We're not practicing kufr or shirk. We're not making a statement that it has to be this way. We're not making tafsir of the Quran. We're saying, just notice, isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? So bear with me while I just, inshallah, by the time you're done, you're going to be short-circuited. You're going to feel like you smoked 6 joints, inshallah, and hit up some mushrooms. By the time I'm done with you, inshallah, you'll be over with. Satan's whisperings. Now, Dajjal and deception, the fact that AI, the ability to create the type of false realities and manipulate perception, this parallels the hadith about Dajjal's false miracles. Just as Dajjal will make what is false appear true, like the Jannah and Jahannam, AI can create convincing simulations and illusions. I'll tell you something. Some brother sends me a message and says, brother, I just utilized a tool called Notebook LM. It's a new technology made by Google. And I wanted to test. And I pulled it on my wife and an employee here and my mother, and I wanted to see if anybody would catch it. And what it did is I uploaded the Afterlife manual, my book, as a PDF. This is mind-blowing. I uploaded my book, the Afterlife manual, and it just, Notebook LM, which is in experimental phase by Google right now, pretty much, read through the whole thing, summarized it, put together a study guide, table of contents, timeline, generated FAQs, all in a matter of a minute or so. And then it gave me the ability to generate an AI generated podcast simulation that sounds like 2 people are discussing on a podcast my book. Literally like 2 white folks. They sound white, right? And the way they even pronounce like Allah and Iman is Emin. And so I know because I did it. And I'm going to let you hear a piece of it. This is them discussing my book. Now, I could take this right now and say, Subhanallah, look, this new podcast of Muslim maybe converts or reverts have read my book and they're discussing it. And people would believe it because it's so real. Listen.
Ever catch yourself wondering, like, what happens after,
listen,
after this life? I mean, we've all heard the stories, but what if there was a
I'm
different
going to forward
creating how we experience it? Like how we see things is based on our own perceptions.
Which is actually really empowering if you think about it, because it means we can change how we experience things by just changing how we see them. And one way to do that, the manual says, is by understanding Allah's names, right? Like take Al-Qadir, for example. It means Allah has unlimited power.
The manual
or
says.
Al-Samad, it means he's completely self-sufficient. He doesn't need anything from us.
He used to be a problem. He just walked right out of a huge fire without a scratch on it.
Right. It shows us that Allah can use anything to do what he wants. Sometimes we see it, sometimes we don't. And sometimes he does what he wants, even when we think it's impossible.
Yes.
So like if Allah can work through stuff or even without it.
Look at how real that conversation really feels like a podcast conversation. Listen.
How does that change how we should live our lives? That's a pretty big takeaway for me.
Yeah.
It really makes you think twice, huh? Like, if Allah is the one really calling the shots, what are we supposed to do? Yeah. And the cool thing is, this manual, it doesn't just leave us hanging. It's like, it gives us this checklist almost for how to, succeed in this life and the next one too.
Yeah. And it's not what you'd expect. It's not about like racking up good deeds, like points or something. It all comes down to 2 things, really. Having real iman and living your life the right way.
Having real iman. You see what I'm talking about? This is an AI generated podcast. If I had shared it if I didn't tell you about it, you'd think it's real. So it's going to get to a point you're not going to know whether you're really looking at Elon Musk delivering a talk. Tomorrow there's going to be a version of me put out, my AI version, hanging out with ladies, doing some haram stuff. I'm like, look, Sheikh Ousama has turned into a milkshake, right? And everybody's panicking. And it's just some type of AI generated whatever it is. And this is why, Meta released that new thing where if you manipulate any of the content with AI, there's a toggle that you're supposed to switch on. Are you kidding me? Like, this stuff is for real, man. We will come to a point where already in the matrix, where we have to use the light to penetrate. Allah's veiling His qudra behind the worldly means. And then we put on new virtual reality headsets until you no longer have to put headsets because they're going to microchip your rear end. Right? And then you're going to be like, you're pretty much walking. You're seeing a world layered over a world, layered over a world. And Allah talks about nurun ala nur, yahdi Allahu li nurihi man yasha. And here you have darkness upon darkness, asbab over asbab, a world over a world. And then you don't know which world you're in. As much as, like, you know, whatever it is, a Marvel, this seems very Hollywood-ishy, whatever, or Bollywood. You know, our kids are going to experience this stuff. We already experienced it to some level. And Apple has integrated. It's not, okay, it's all a coincidence. So many coincidences. There are no coincidences. It's all Allah's work. The A18 chip gets introduced. The A represents the number 1. 18, if you add the 1 and the 8, that's 9. So the A is a 1 and 1 plus 8 is 9. That's 19. And it's a coincidence that they introduce and integrate that powerful Apple intelligence, so to speak, in the iPhone 16 as they introduce the A18 chip. And what's going to happen when it settles and becomes even more powerful and they introduce the A19 chip? And you're wondering, like, what's the significance of 19? Why 9? Allah's the creator of numbers. Numbers, mathematics is the universal language. When angels want to communicate with you, why do you think you start to see the same numbers over and over again? Oh, I keep seeing 111 everywhere I look. I keep seeing 19 everywhere I look. I see this number that keeps repeating. And then you've got these other forms of energies that are trying to communicate. When Allah gives me tawfiq, I don't have my kids around, I'm traveling, I'm in some type of meditation, I'm out somewhere in a khalwa doing dhikr, and the energy, the frequency of vibration is really, really up there. I start to hear the thoughts that my wife is having while she's at home, and I'll call her and be like, you're thinking about this. And she'd be like, oh, how did you know? It's because it's all energy. And when you begin to vibrate at that frequency, you become latif and you become sensitive. And then you're able to pick up things that others aren't able to pick up through the power of dhikr and presence of heart. This is real stuff, people. I'm not joking here. And then, so all of this, when we bring it together and we think about it, and the number 19, when Allah mentions it, He says, عَلَيْهَا تِسْعَةَ عَشَرَ. Why does Jahannam have 19 angels over it? And what's the significance of 19? And why are there 19 letters in the Basmala? Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Bas, Sin, Mim. Count the letters. You'll find exactly 19 letters. And why is it the two numbers that contain all numbers, the 1 and the 9? Because, actually if you look at it, between 1 and 9, you have all the numbers. And if you do the multiplication table, 1 times 19 is 19, which is made up of a 1 and a 9. You add the 1 and the 9, you get 10. The 10 is made of a 1 and a 0. Add the 1 and a 0, you get 1. Now do 2 times 19, you get 38. 3 plus the 11, 3 plus 8 is 11. It's made up of a 1 and a 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. Do 3 times 19, 57. 5 plus 7 is what? 5 plus 7 is 12. And the 1 plus the 2 is what? Is 3. So you start to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as you go through. And then when you finish it, and then it's like 10 times 19, you're back to 190, which is 1 plus 9 plus 0, which is what? 10 again. And 1 plus 0 is 1. And it repeats over and over and over again. And why are the first words to be revealed exactly 19? اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق خلق الإنسان من علق اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم. That's 15. علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم. The very first words to be revealed are 19. What's Allah getting at? Everything. وكل شيء خلقناه بقدر. Everything we created with perfect detail for a reason. Nothing, ليس هباء. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't play. So when I put up a post talking about AI and all these people, oh, what are you smoking, brother Ousama? I'm smoking, I don't know, cocaine. I'm hitting up, I'm injecting myself with hair, whatever you want to believe. But these are realities. They are, wallahi. I'm getting excited because I'm excited about this topic. So forgive me. I know some of you get anxious when I get a bit all over the place, but that's the truth. And a Dajjal will make it like here, it's very clear to me that a smokeless fire, as Allah mentions it in the Quran, is a type of energy, an electric current, because it doesn't have smoke attached to it. And for me, as far as I'm concerned, is it a coincidence that the semiconductor, the silicon chip, made of sand in order to conduct? And you watch Aladdin back in the days. Where do they have the genie's lamp in Aladdin? Oh, buried under the desert, where the jinn this is like where they're most comfortable. And you take out the lamp, and what do? You rub. You create a charge. What do you do when you create a charge? Out comes the genie. Shubik, lubik, amrak bin idek, or whatever it is. You get 3 wishes. And then the genie starts to what? Fulfill your desires. And usually they're evil desires because of the nature of man. And then they're warned. So all these things are there, man. Like, I know I don't talk about them a lot because people immediately think you're cuckoo. But because there's only so much you can say in a minute and a half. And it's not a coincidence that I go on a spiritual retreat and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala I came back and I just had this urge to spill out this information. These thoughts don't come from nowhere. Like, it's all about, being able to pierce through. Look at Sulaiman when he invited Balqis. And the Ifrit, he copied the person from the ilm of the kitab. The Ifrit they basically took a copy of the throne of Balqis and they brought it as a symbol. But what happened when she entered the Sarh? It was said to her, what? Enter the palace. But when she saw it, she thought it was a body of water. And then what did Balqis do? She uncovered her shins because she thought her feet were going to get what? Were going to get wet. So Sulaiman, what did he say? He says, indeed, it is a palace whose floor is made smooth with glass. She said, my Lord, indeed, I have wronged myself and I submit with Sulaiman. Lillahi Rabbil Alameen, to Allah, Lord of the worlds. And Sheikh Hassan Ali, he points this out from the UK. This guy is a little mad like me. I love him. And he shares a story about the interpretation of this event, and he emphasizes the wisdom of Prophet Sulaiman and how he symbolized the unveiling of Queen Sheba, Balqis's from Yemen, inner self and the transformation of her spiritual state. And this is I took exactly what he said. He says the palace floor and deception of the eyes. The glass floor of the palace appeared like water, and Balqis lifted her dress to avoid getting wet, only to realize it was a visual illusion. And Sheikh Hassan Ali explains that this is a metaphor for how people can be deceived by the outward appearance of things in life. The polished glass symbolizes clarity and truth, which can only be seen when one goes beyond the superficial perceptions. So this is why we're talking about strengthening that inner light and nur, so you're able to pierce through these things. And Prophet Sulaiman's wisdom was such that in using the glass floor, not just as a marvel of architecture that she was amazed by, but she got it, but as a means to reveal the truth to Balqis, both physically and spiritually, so that Sulaiman was not showing off his wealth, but was orchestrating a situation where she would experience humility and come to the realization of Allah's greatness on her own, that I've been deceived this whole time. The truth was in front of me this whole time, but I was so caught up with the worldly things and my status and this and this and that I failed to see it because reality is transparent. But now she's in the hadra, she's in the presence of a prophet filled with light, Sulaiman alayhi salam. So any story at the time of Sulaiman and the ring of Sulaiman and the carpet of Sulaiman, Sulaiman is the only one where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, prophet, when he mentions the staff, he calls it a asa. And it's also not a coincidence that asa, subhanallah, if you write it in the Arabic language, ain, Sad, and then the alif maksura that looks like a ya, it looks like a snake. And how just like the asa of Musa, when he threw it, that's how it appeared to him. And again, that the people of Pharaoh and the magic Well, what is that in your right hand, O Musa? Oh, it's a staff. Really? Throw it, O Musa. Musa throws it. The staff turns into what? A serpent. All of a sudden, the staff that he thought had all these benefits. I use it for herding my sheep, meaning it's a means of rizq. I lean on it, meaning it aids me and helps me. I've got ma'aribu ukhra, many benefits. And all of a sudden, the apparent benefits turn into apparent harm. And the very same inanimate object now turns into an animate object. And typically you associate benefit with a staff. Now you're associating harm with it. Everything was switched over on its head. In alab kul shi ala ra'san ala wajh. And then all of a sudden he sees that it's a snake and he runs away. And then Allah says, خُذْهَا وَلَا تَخَفْ. Take it and don't be scared. سَنُعِيدُهَا سِيرَتَهَا الْأُولَى. We're going to bring it back to its original state. So then Musa alayhi salam covers up his hand to go for the snake because he was going to go from the tail. And Allah says, no, grab it from the head. And then he goes for the head like this. They say, what are you doing? Straight up. And then he goes like this and he grabs it. And the moment he goes for the snake, it's mentioned as a hayya. In the same story, the snake is mentioned in 3 different Arabic names, each with a power, each with a meaning. It's mentioned as a thu'ban, which is a python, a really large snake. It's mentioned as a jan, which is a very, from jinn that are very fast and move very fast. قال عفريت من الجن. So as a jan, a very fast snake, and it's mentioned as a hayya, a very poisonous snake, had all the attributes to scare the living daylights out of Musa, and it did. It wasn't a normal snake. Allah is teaching him a lesson, and he goes to grab it. Can you imagine the scene? And then it turns back into a staff. And now Musa gets it. Now, if Allah were to ask him, what is that in your hand, O Musa? He would say, it is the command of God. Whatever Allah wishes for it to be, it would be. Allah is one in His essence, one in His names, one in His attributes, one in His rulings, one is in His attributes. If Allah is an-nafi' fala nafi'a illa Allah. And if Allah is ad-dar fala darra illa Allah. And if Allah is the one ar-rafi' fala rafi'a illa Allah. And if Allah is the one that is mu'izz fala mu'izza illa Allah. And if it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that is the mudhill fala mudhilla illa Allah. The one nafi' is Allah. You're telling me you have many benefits in that staff. I'm going to show you the reality. And now he's no longer impacted or scared of form, of the worldly phenomena. Now that same staff that Allah calls a asa, but with Sulaiman, he calls it a mansa'a. A mansa'a. And the mansa'a is related to the lunar month. Minsa'atu. And this mansa'a, I've heard some of them, one of them being, I think, Sheikh Hussein and a few other people that have spoken on this topic mention it. And they say that he gave him the ability to time travel. Because for me, it didn't make sense that Sulaiman would be sitting, right, with his chin on his mansa'a, and he's there for like a few days, and he doesn't move. What? He doesn't use the washroom? He doesn't need to eat? He doesn't need to drink? The jinn aren't that stupid. So it's almost like time was frozen somehow. And time travel is possible because we're always traveling in our minds in time, thought travel. Every time you're lost in thought, you're time traveling in reality. But a physical time travel, that's another story. I don't think so. I don't think with that, because we need Allah's permission for something like that. But what it really means, you never know with these things, because these things can get pretty crazy. But don't just immediately jump on something because you don't have the full knowledge of it. You haven't read up the different tafsir of the Quran, and you're not exposed to deen in general. And immediately you just attack it with a no. AI is at the very least one of the tools of Dajjal. This is at the very least. It has to be. Because this is what everything is gearing towards. Dajjal is deception. So we have to be ready for this. The idea is not to just talk about this and it's all fun and games. How do I prepare myself for Dajjal? You have to have the light of Tawheed in your heart. You have to be a true believer or you're going to be a follower of Dajjal. The majority of followers of Dajjal are women. This is in the narrations. You read it. Why? I don't know. For some reason, to the point where the believing men will tie their women. Can you imagine? comes in narration, the believing men will tie their women to their beds at home out of fear that's, Dajjal's mighty, whatever it is, charisma, pull, energy, that he deceives them to the point where they rush to follow him and leave their husbands. To that point, it's insane. It's not a joke, people. The majorities, a lot of the extremely pious people, it's not just about piety, it's about iman, it's about nur. You might get the reward, just like, it's mentioned in the hadith, those who read the Quran, and they're very talented at it, مَعِ السَّفَرَةِ الْكِرَامِ الْبَرَرَةِ, they're with the angels. And those who read the Quran and recite it, وَيَتَتَعْتَعُ فِيهِ, and he's having difficulty or she's having difficulty, فَلَهُ أَجْران, they get 2 rewards. So you'll get maybe more reward, but the nur of reciting correctly, that level of nur you won't get, because the safara kiramin barar is the angels. So you want that iman that's going to bequeath light. You have to protect the senses, and you have to fill that ruh with the recitation of Quran. We have to up our game, man. You've got to read Arabic to the point where you're able to read and complete the Quran in 7 days. We have to up our game before Dajjal comes. You have to have a strong dhikr where you practice, meditate on this dhikr. You're completely focused. Not dhikr while you're jumping up and down and playing and talking to people. This is not dhikr. This is the dhikr of the tongue. But to actually have that point where you're able to ittaqu farasat al-mu'min, Umar radiyallahu anhu says, فَإِنَّهُ يَنْظُرُ بِنُورِ اللَّهِ. Umar says that beware the farasa. Faras, that ability to penetrate, where things become transparent, to see behind things. He says the nur of the believer, so because he sees with the light of God. What is the light of God? Consciousness, meaning he's present, meaning he's aware, the light of spirit. It's a light. وَلَكِنْ جَعَلْنَاهُ نُورًا نَهْدِي بِهِ مَنْ نَشَاءُ مِنْ عِبَادِنَا. Samjhe bhai, you understand? And this is what we're getting to. This is the point. Not to just know this stuff, because we could be wrong in a few things that we say. But ya akhi, there's too many things that line up that you're just kind of like, this is not too far-fetched. And then when Shaitan himself, what does he say about وَلَآمُرَنَّهُمْ فَلَيُبَتِّكُنَّ آذَانَ الْأَنْعَامِ. And he's talking about commanding them. And maybe these commands have something to do with the command prompts you enter into a computer. However AI is implemented at that point. Could be. So these things aren't far-fetched, man. And they're pretty deep. They're pretty powerful. If you have any questions, ask now. Jump to the question box. I'll take questions now, inshallah ta'ala. But don't immediately jump and say no when you don't know. And you don't have to accept it either. But have enough of an understanding to see that this is all declared by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And at some point, we're going to see it manifest, whether we like it or not. Save this, brother. Of course, we're going to save this. Don't worry. How long have I been going? Has it been an hour? I don't want to lose this, but let's check the questions really quick. Does the black screen have anything to do with anything? Of course. They made all the screens are black because they reflect your image, because they want you to be egocentric. What do you think the selfie is? A selfie, ma'a nafsi, everybody's happy with their selfie. It's just a symbol of the egocentric mind. It's just the ana. And Arabs, what do they say? وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنْ كَلِمَةِ أَنَا. I seek refuge when they say the word I, because I is reserved for the one. إِنَّنِي أَنَا اللَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا أَنَا. Ana is reserved for God. So when we say it just as part of language, typically we say وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنْ كَلِمَةِ أَنَا. Salaam alaikum. I was a Freemason for nearly 2 years. Alf mabruk. For nearly 2 decades. MashaAllah. And raised in the things you are discussing. So you know what I'm talking about. The brother here was a Freemason. With their devil worshipping and their conspiring and all that stuff. It's in there. The Zionists and the plan that they have and the Temple of Solomon and what they're doing in Gaza and Palestine, it's all linked. Protections from Dajjal are 10 ayahs of Surah Al-Kahf. What else protect us? Most the Iman. Number one, memorize Surah Al-Kahf from beginning to end, not just the first 10. Because in a narration, the first 10, in a narration, the last 10. And there's a hikmah behind that. Maybe we'll discuss that in the next video. Assalamu alaikum. I was a Freemason. We did that one. Does black screen? We did that one. When Dajjal appears, you think the world would know? Oh yeah. We're gonna know, all right. That's for sure. We're gonna know. Anything isn't believing in numbers as an angel signs a form of shirk. Akhi, we're not believing. We're saying that who is it the one that created the numbers? We're not saying that numbers have intrinsic power. We're saying Allah does through means, without means, against means, with everything that I'm teaching and sharing. That someone has the audacity to think that I would say something of shirk. You're not, what are you thinking? Either that or you're a new follower. You haven't listened to my talks. And a shirk is one thing that I drop nuclear weapons on, as far as I'm concerned. Through the talk of negation and affirmation. That's what I do. I wipe out, I erase, I annihilate any subtle shirk that you have in your heart through the type of talks I give. You don't believe me? Listen to my videos. Man, you have like 1,000 questions. That's too much. Okay, this is one of the most popular videos because it seems like everybody's interested in Dajjal, Jinn, AI, 19, all that stuff. But I'm telling you, Apple is taking artificial intelligence, branding it as their own with their original apple of sin. Whether some people are like, oh, brother, no, you're wrong. It's not an apple. It doesn't matter whether it was an apple or not. The idea is the general perception of the world, because the biggest religion right now for the time is Christianity. And this is what they purported. And maybe it was an apple, maybe it wasn't. We don't know for sure. But it was definitely a bitten apple according to the Christian tradition, right? So now what? Why does a technology company put an apple? What the heck does an apple have to do with technology? It can't be and a bitten apple. I mean, come on. The symbol of the tree, that tree, وَلَا تَقْرَبَ هَذِهِ الشَّجَرَةِ, is the symbol of temptation, that type of knowledge that tempts you. And now they're rebranding AI as Apple intelligence. And the one that pushed them for that apple is Iblis himself. I mean, come on. And right, they integrated so powerfully with ChatGPT, with the A18 chip. 1 + 8 is 9. The A is 1. 19 is introduced here. And then by 2027, or 2026, when we have the A19 chip, Allah yastur. Allahu a'lam. Dajjal's coming. Nobody knows for sure when. But it feels really close. It feels really close. And he's going to take your wives. He's going to take your children. He's going to take everything that was ever, and he might take you if you don't prepare. So continue to follow me. Continue to learn, follow, like, and share the heck out of this video so as many people as possible are exposed to this knowledge. I'm going to share it right away. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.